All right, great. So I'm going to share my screen once more. Can I get an emoji thumbs up, or can someone come off mute just to confirm that you can see my screen? You should be looking at the slide.
I can see your screen.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so today we're going to go through a few things. As you all know, the Phase 1 reporting for ESSER has concluded. We've extended the deadline. There were some folks having some technical issues. So if you were one of those people, you will be able to submit until the end of the day today. And if you were able to get everything in yesterday, then you're doing great and you're ready for Phase 2. So we're going to go through the timeline for submission. So what needs to get done when. I don't know why those are out of order. We are going to walk through the actual content of the data. So like what actual information do you need to provide? We will walk through the template itself so you can see tactically what it is that you'll need to fill out. And then we are going to round out with just sharing with you some resources that you'll be able to access while completing the data collection. We are going to assume that you will, of course, have questions because it's the first time we're all going through this, and we want to make sure we're being as helpful and supportive as possible. So first, as you all know, we're required to do this. It is a requirement of the U.S. Department of Education. Everything that we're asking for is directly aligned to the template that the Department of Education has shared, and is required per their reporting template. The reporting period, again, is FY21, so October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, which is the same as for Phase 1 because it's all part of the same data collection. All right, so we've gotten through March. We are now in April. We are in Phase 2, which is a very similar cadence to Phase 1. So you'll have a template in IDS that you'll be able to download. You'll be asked to complete that. And then you will also be asked to do a data certification. If this is something you haven't done before, the data certification piece specifically, the data person at your LEA or whoever supports with data submissions at your LEA, specifically around potentially enrollment and data of that sort, is actually familiar with the Click app and familiar with the certification process. So when we get to that point in May, I would highly recommend connecting with that person in your LEA, or if it's somebody outside your LEA that supports with that, whoever that person may be, they will probably be very helpful. All right, so today is April 1st. We are here at the webinar. We will also have an instructional guide that will be released today on the website that will walk you through in more detail than this webinar, kind of step-by-step, click-by-click, how to actually do everything, fill everything out in order to successfully complete the data submission. And the IDS portal is open as well today. I do just want to quickly take a moment and apologize around the IDS access issues that I know a lot of y'all faced during Phase 1. Hopefully those have all been resolved at this point. It's the same portal that we're using, and everyone should have access right now. But yeah, I just wanted to apologize for that quickly because I know that was very frustrating. The window this time around is going to be 3 weeks long. This is to help accommodate for spring break. So it's a little bit longer than the last window. You'll see here kind of some tactical things that you'll need to do. So we are providing your EGMS reimbursement data through what's called the Click app. And then you'll also need to download the Phase 2 template from the IDS portal. You can use that EGMS reimbursement data, and then potentially there may be other data sources you want to use as well to help you complete the Phase 2 template. You'll also need to review some student enrollment FTE data. This is stuff we already have on file here at OSSE. We just want you to take a quick look to make sure we didn't screw anything up or pull the wrong numbers on accident. And then lastly, just submitting the template into the IDS portal, and then if there are any errors with the student enrollment or FTE data, making sure that you let us know to fix that. And that is by April 21st. From April 22nd till May 6th, my team will be reviewing your data submissions, just doing a sanity check and a spot check on the accuracy, flagging anything that may need to be changed. So if anything does, you'll get an email from a grant manager directly to you with kind of the specifics of any questions or anything that needs to be changed. And then you'll have an opportunity the week following to make changes if that's even needed, and then doing the data certification that I referenced on the earlier high-level timeline slide. I'm going to pause for a second just to let you all digest for a moment that timeline, and then we will move into the actual content of the submission. All right, so the actual reporting requirements. What do you actually need to tell us or tell the Department of Education? So I've bucketed it into 3 major categories. First is your expenditure data by the Department of Education's expenditure categories. Again, we are going to provide for you your EGMS reimbursement data, so you can use that as a starting point. The second is the student enrollment FTE data. This again is already on file at OSSE. We're just sharing it again with you to make sure we're not making any mistakes when we do the submission to the Department of Education. And then the last big bucket are your planned uses of remaining ESSER funds. So this is going to be in 4 broad categories. And it's going to be by percentage. So you would say, I'm going to use 20% in this, 10% in this, and et cetera, et cetera. This is not written in stone. These are estimates only. So it's what you know as of right now for how you plan to use your ESSER funds, but this is certainly not something that you will be held to in the future. I think we all know by now that planning for the future in the middle of a pandemic is a real dicey experience, and so please don't feel like whatever you report in here, we're going to triangulate that back to your application or anything like that. This is simply just estimates. We're going to focus mostly today's webinar on the actual expenditure data, just because it is the most involved part of the submission. So that is what we're going to talk about for probably 80 to 90% of our remaining time. That's what we'll be focusing on today. All right, so this expenditure data. So the U.S. Department of Education released their reporting categories in February. And so we had already, of course, designed our application so that y'all could get access to your funds much earlier than this February, because y'all needed it. And so the categories do not precisely align, but we have done a lot of work on our end to try and alleviate as much lift as possible for y'all in terms of trying to make this translation between what you submitted to us and what the U.S. Department of Education is asking for. So here's the broad kind of cuts. So the first they're going to ask for is by grant/program, and I'll get into a little bit more about what the /program means on the next slide. The next cut is by spending activity, and the last is cost type. So what do these things actually mean? So grant program, this is by grant, so ESSER 1 CARES, ESSER 2 CRESA, and then they've split ESSER 3 ARP into 2 categories. So one is your ESSER 3 ARP that is spent on things that were not evidence-based interventions, and then your ESSER 3 ARP spent on things that were evidence-based interventions. I know a lot of y'all haven't yet touched your ESSER 3 ARP money, and so in that situation, this is going to be a little much more easy breezy for you, but definitely something to keep in mind in the future as you start spending down those funds, that when you report those, that bucket of money will be split into money not spent on evidence-based interventions and money spent on evidence-based interventions. So that's the first cut you'll do, four buckets. From those 4 buckets, then there are the spending activities. So here are the 4 spending activities. I'm not going to read them out loud to you, but as you look at them, you should notice that they actually are similar to the budget codes that you filled out to in the ESSER 3 or all the ESSER applications. They're not, again, one for one, but it's kind of getting at similar things. So I would just take note of that as we talk about the next piece. And then the last cut is by cost type. So again, I'm not going to read these to you, but as you read through them, you should notice a similarity between these and the EGMS budget categories, right? So salaries and benefits, professional services, equipment, et cetera, et cetera. It's a similar type of cut. So I'm going to pause here for a second and kind of re-say what I just said in a different way to hopefully make it a little bit more clear. So you're going to first divide your expenditures into those 4 grant/program categories. Then for your ESSER 1 CARES, right, so I'm just going to take that as one example. For your ESSER 1 CARES, let's just say you spent $100 in FY21. You then have to split that $100 between those 4 spending activities. Let's say, can someone make sure whoever came off mute, if you could make sure you go back on mute, that would be great. Thank you. All right, so then for, let's just say out of that $100 for ESSER 1 CARES, you spent $30 on addressing physical health and safety. So you have $30 there in that bucket. That $30 you then need to divide into the cost types. So let's just say out of that $30, you spent $10 on salaries, $5 on benefits, and then another $15 on supplies. That final cut is what needs to be submitted to the Department of Education. So if you're freaking out right now, please don't. We have done everything we can on our end to try and provide as much of this as possible or help you make this crosswalk as seamlessly as possible. So the first thing we've done is one, like I just mentioned, we have provided you all of your EGMS reimbursement data at a line item level of detail through the Click app. So I'm going to take you through that very quickly right now, just so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to log into the Click app. So here's the Click app. It should be the same credentials as you use to log into the IDS portal. So you don't need to remember different passwords or anything like that. They're all kind of connected to the same system. So we're going to log in. You're going to find the ESSER piece. You probably will not have this many cards when your screen opens, but you'll find the thing that says ESSER. You'll open it. Hopefully it opens more quickly for you than it does for me. And then you'll see here, so here's the student enrollment and faculty, the FTE data that we referred to previously, and this is where you'll double check on those. But the focus right now are these 3. So you'll see 3 different cards or sheets. There's CARES and ESSER 2 have been put together and split by salaries and benefits and all other EGMS budget categories. And there's 2 sheets for ESSER 3 ARP, the same salaries and benefits and all other categories. If you click on any of them, it will take you to a spreadsheet that shows you your reimbursements. And then from here, you can download into Excel. And the instructional guide will have all these click-by-click, step-by-step things, but I just wanted you to see that this data is available to you. So you'll be able to download all of that, and then from there, we are going to, in the instructional guide, provide you mapping tables that map your ESSER budget codes to the Department of Education spending activities. I know we have separate budget codes for ESSER 1 and then different ones for ESSER 2 and 3 because we didn't know ESSER 2 and 3 were coming when we made ESSER 1. And so we have different tables for all the different budget codes. And then also, if you remember the cost types, we also have a mapping table that takes you from the EGMS budget categories, so the salaries and benefits, et cetera, to the US Department of Education cost types. So we've kind of done an initial cut of that. You'll see that we're not really able to do one-for-one mapping for all the budget codes, so you'll have to make some decisions here, but we're hoping that through the mapping tables, a large swath, at least, of the expenditures will kind of be mapped for you, and that you'll just have to make some delineations among just a few of the categories. Again, the instructional guide literally takes you through like a step-by-step of how to download and do the actual crosswalk. So I would strongly recommend using that and reviewing that as you go through this exercise. All right, so from here we have, I'm going to then walk you through the actual department of, the template that you'll need to fill out, the Phase II template that you'll download from the IDS portal. So again, you should download the reporting template from the IDS portal. We strongly recommend downloading your ESSER data from the Click app into Excel spreadsheets to work with them. You can use, again, the instructional guide to do that crosswalk from your reimbursement data to the Department of Education's categories. And then lastly, you'll be able to then just sum everything using the Excel spreadsheets into the segments required by the Department of Education. I'm going to go through this really quickly just to kind of get to the actual template, but this is what you've done before. This is how you download the template. It's the same as with Phase 1. So I'm going to walk through the template in the way that the template is divided, which is by mainly by the spending activities, a separate section for the planned use of the remaining funds, and then again, kind of talking really quickly through and reviewing the enrollment and FTE data. All right, so this is what the template looks like. This should look very familiar visually, as it's laid out very similarly to the Phase 1, or a very similar look to the Phase 1 template. You will see your spending activities across the very top. You will see the cost types broken out below them. And then these rows here, I'm actually not sure if y'all can see my mouse, so I'm going to change to the laser pointer. So again, the spending activities are across the top, the 4, and then the cost types are below each of these. And then what you fill out are the rows below. So you can see here what we talked about previously by grant/program, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, which would be the section without evidence-based interventions, and then the last row, which is the cost just for evidence-based interventions. So if I kind of look here, there's an example here, this this yellow cell highlighted right here. This would be the cost spent on meeting students' academic, social, emotional, and other needs. Within that, how much was spent on supplies for your ESSER 1 grant. So just to kind of orient you a little bit to the template, that's how you should be reading each cell. So across the top are the categories, and then across each row is the grant and program type. So addressing physical health and safety. We have in this PowerPoint, I'm not going to read all of these things to you, but examples of what does addressing physical health and safety mean. And so here you can see what that means. I want to point out here quickly that assistance for student meals is in this particular section, along with other things that the name sort of inherently conveys. So PPE, cleaning, any physical modifications you've made to the building, anything basically you've done to keep your students physically safe and healthy. So I'm going to pop out of here for a second and actually pop into the template itself, just so you can actually see what it looks like in real life. So the template here, I'm going to zoom out and it's going to be really tiny. You're not going to be able to read anything. I'm going to acknowledge that right up front, but I just want you to see how the total thing is set up. So it's a very long template that you're going to have to go across. Each color is a different spending activity. So this first one is addressing physical health and safety. The next one, meeting students' academic, social, emotional, and other needs. The mental health supports for students and staff. and then the operational continuity and other allowed uses. So you can see here it's very long, and everything is done across. I'm going to zoom back in. Within each spending activity, again, you have the different, it breaks it down, each column into the different cost types. And then you can see here the rows for each grant or program. So just trying to orient quickly to how the template is actually laid out. If I zoom in a little bit closer, you can see also at the beginning of each spending activity, there's a column here where you'll need to sum the total for each of those spending activities. So that is, again, at the beginning of each section. So you'll see here a summing column, in this spending activity, a column to sum, and then the last spending activity, again, another column at the beginning to sum simply for that spending activity. At the end of that section, I'm sorry. You'll see a column here, AR, which is the total expenditures for FY21. So all your expenditures for FY21, you would need to sum and put that in here by grant, by program. And then the very last section of the template is the planned uses of remaining funds. So I just want you to see now how the template itself is laid out. And then we're going to go back to the PowerPoint to actually go through each section. So again, addressing physical health and safety, similar to before, the options set shows you what the permitted values are. You should use the EGMS spreadsheets that you've downloaded from the Click app to help you fill out all these numbers. Remember that your ESSER 3 is split between what is spent on evidence-based interventions and what isn't, and that you'll need to sum for the total at the beginning of each section. So again, meeting students' academic, social, emotional, and other needs. Here's another set of examples to orient you to what this section actually is referring to. This is probably the most extensive section, and I would kind of make a guess that almost every LEA would have some kind of costs related to this. The department has also explicitly split out mental health support, so we'll have a slide later to kind of show what's the difference between supporting social emotional needs and mental health. So again, the section of the template on meeting students' academic, social, emotional, and other needs. So here you can see the main difference between mental health supports is that these are supports that are being provided by a licensed mental health professional. So if you have teachers doing a social emotional curriculum, things like that, that would belong in the former category. Anything more formal or professional would belong in the mental health supports for students and staff. So again, the template laid out very much the same way that we just went through. And then the last, operational continuity and other allowed uses. Here are some other examples of this particular spending activity, just for your reference. So this is kind of a very strong sort of all other bucket, things that allowed you to continue to function and stay open, and anything else that you may have spent your funds on. Again, this section of the template, this is what it looks like. All right, and then we're going to wrap up the template with just looking once again at the planned use of expenditures. So you'll see here, here are the categories. It's the same ones as the spending activities, the same 4 as the spending activities, and then you have an additional 5th bucket that basically allows you to say, we haven't made plans for this percentage of the funds yet. So again, don't feel like this section is something you're going to be held to. This is just as of when you submit the template, your best known plans for the future. I also want to point out in this particular section, you do not need to split out your ESSER 3 into 2 buckets. It is just your planned use of expenses for ESSER 1 CARES, ESSER 2 CRESA, and ESSER 3 ARP, just for those 3 grant programs in total. You do not need to split out the ESSER 3 into 2 separate sections. Also, please make sure your percentages add up to 100%, because that's what the template will check for when you submit it into the IDS portal. Okay, so then once you are finished filling everything out, you'll upload it very similarly to how you did before. It will tell you if there's any errors or not. We did have a couple LEAs have an issue where they would upload and it said 0 errors, but then also that the upload failed, which is very confusing. If that happens to you, make sure that you didn't actually change anything in the template itself. So for example, these column headers, if you changed anything in these column headers and tried to upload, the portal will not accept the upload. So in that case, it will say there are 0 errors, but we can't receive this. So make sure you're leaving all of these headers as is and only filling things out in the rows below. All right, and then very lastly, student enrollment and FTE. So again, like I mentioned before, this is available in the Click app. All you have to do is click on each one, go in, please make sure that it matches your previously certified data to OSSE, and as long as it does, you're good to go. If it doesn't, you just submit a ticket through the OSSE support tool to let us know that we need to update what's in the Click app, and we will do that. All right, very lastly, just rounding out supports and resources. So one, in the template, like the Phase 2 template, similar to the Phase 1 template, there is a tab that says Data Elements Descriptions. So you can always reference that if you have a question about what one particular column might mean. The next is the instructional guide. This, as you can see, is very extensive, and it really does take you through click by click, cell by cell, what needs to be done through every step of the process in order to submit your Phase 2 data collection. Similar to this webinar, the focus of this particular document is the expenditures section. You can also see here we specifically have a section called mapping the expenditures and totaling the expenditures. This will take you through literally step by step how to download, how to take the EGMS reimbursements data from the Click app and go step by step how to map them to the Department of Education's reporting categories. We have tried to make it as foolproof as possible, but of course, if you have questions, you're always welcome to reach out to us. But we know that this is not a simple task or a quick task, and so we've done our absolute best to try and support you through how to actually do that conversion between the budget codes and categories from OSSE to the U.S. Department of Education's required reporting categories. All right, so in terms of reducing burden, we've populated what we can and also provided the data that we can. There's this webinar, of course. Our grants newsletter will have updates and reminders about upcoming deadlines to help you stay organized. You can always submit questions to osse.esser@dc.gov. I'm sure y'all have seen where we are responsive through that email address. We're also going to be hosting office hours, so keep an eye out for that in the grants newsletter. This is something where you'll be able to sign up for a 10-minute time slot if you have any questions that need to be answered that you would rather do kind of real time through Teams versus email in case you want to share your screen or anything like that. And then very lastly, for certifying the data, we're going to release an additional instructional guide on how to do that when the time gets closer. Again, I would really recommend that you connect with whoever is responsible usually for submitting data on behalf of your LEA to OSSE, because the systems that we're using, IDS and Click, are systems that they're familiar with, and I'm sure they can be very helpful with just generally how to navigate and how the process works. All right, so sort of your immediate ish next steps between now and in May. We've tried to break these down step by step to help kind of guide you through what you should be doing throughout the process, and also given you a little bit of an estimated time so that you can plan your days and your weeks accordingly. Obviously, we're anticipating that mapping your expenditures is what will take the greatest amount of time, and is a little bit hard for us to predict because some LEAs have a much lower allocation than others, and then also some folks spent all their funds sort of in one really large bulk line item, whereas other people chose to do it in smaller amounts and more line items. So all of that will factor into how long that particular task takes. All right, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to unshare my screen so I can see if there's any questions that have come through the chat. All right, so give me a second just to scroll up to make sure I don't miss anything. I want to confirm the data certification is due May 13th. There was a question about the timing. I'm going to confirm it is May 13th, which is the date that the LEA needs to certify the data. The next question is, by when can you access the reimbursement data in CLIC? That should be available today. So again, you should be able to log into CLIC using the same credentials as you used for the IDS portal, and you should be able to see that data in there today. The next question says, what if we don't know how we are going to use ESSER funds yet? So in the planned use of expenditures, there's that fifth column that says unspecified uses. So if you don't know what you're going to do yet, that column is your best friend. What is the link to that website? I'm not sure what website I was looking at precisely 10:18 a.m. Aaliyah, I'm assuming potentially you're talking about the CLIC.
Yes, Linda, she was.
Oh, okay. I'll find that in a second and share that in the chat. That's also going to be there were links to that throughout these webinar slides, and there will also be links to the CLIC app in the instructional guide as well. And then there was another question about the CLIC app. So yes, I will share that link in just one second. Is Phase 2 reporting required for all LEAs or just Title I LEAs? It is just the Title I LEAs that received ESSER funding. Will the template become available today? Yes, in IDS, the ESSER Phase 2 template, you should be able to download that today. We can use funds to service our existing new market tax credit debt or Aussie existing debt. I will have to do some research and get back to you on that. So yes, there is an allowable use of funds relating to debt service, but it will still need to relate to the pandemic, because all of these funds need to somehow relate to pandemic response. Deborah, if you want to follow up with an email on that, and sort of a specific question of how that relates to your LEA, we'll be happy to take a look. All right, so let me just very quickly get y'all the link to CLIC. So I just popped it in the chat right here, and I will wait just a couple more minutes to see if any other questions come through.
Linda, there's one other question on here.
Yes.
It says on one of the previous slides, you noted that the due date to verify data in CLIC was May 9. Here it says May 13. I don't know which slide that was though.
Yeah, I'm confirming it is May 13th is the deadline for LEAs to certify their data. And yes, Rachel, if you want to come off mute.
Hi, everyone. For those I've not met, my name is Rachel Johnston. I work for the DC Charter School Alliance. We collaborated with OSSI, with EdOps, and with Funded Strategies to put together a COVID-19 grants toolkit. So it's beyond just this ESSER 2 reporting, but I wanted to share it with everyone here because it does include a component about the ESSER 2 reporting, as well as other, grant reporting ways in which you could use your ESSER funds, things like that. We hope it's helpful for grant managers, since we know that some of this information is in various places, and it includes information on the health and safety grants as well. So like your COVID testing grant and things like that. So we'll also have a call on April 20th, the day before this reporting is due. So if you have any questions, last minute urgent questions, Aussie will be in attendance for the last half of that session. And you can register. The link to register is in the first page of the toolkit.
Thank you. All right, if there aren't any more questions, thank you all so much for logging in this morning and attending this webinar. Please email us with any questions. We know that this is a new process that we're all going through together, and we want to make sure we're being as supportive as possible. And any feedback you have for us on how we could potentially make this better in future years, also welcome to that. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a great weekend.